Good morning and welcome to Breakthrough Walls. I'm Ken Walls and I'm your host. And I have a rock star guest on today. Her name is Jennifer Moran. I hope I'm saying her last name right. She'll tell me. Anyway, hey, we'll be right back. And we're back. I have the one and only amazing Jennifer. I can't even say her second name. Jennifer, welcome to the show.
Hey, I'm happy to be here. I slid in Mach 10 with my hair on fire, but I'm here.
You're here. That's all that matters.
And Ken, you can call me anything you want, Ken, Just don't call me moron, right? Moran.
People haven't actually done that, have they?
Well, way back when I was in pharmaceutical sales before I became an entrepreneur, a lot of times the nurses would come out and go, Mrs. Moron, the doctor will see you now.
Oh my!
I'm sure the doctor wants to see a moron. They probably see plenty of morons without me.
Oh my Lord, have mercy. Hopefully you corrected them.
I did. Sometimes I did. Sometimes it was pointless. So whatever.
You've got to be a moron to say that.
Yeah. Well, actually, Weird Al Yankovic, I think he did a parody called Word Crimes. And there was a scene where he holds up, "Don't be a Moran" instead of "Don't be a moron." And oh my gosh, I posted it on my own Facebook wall and made fun of myself. Just saying.
That is so funny.
That's what happens when you marry that name.
So look, I created this show a couple years ago. I know you've seen it. I created to help people get unstuck in life. And I know that you have been incredibly successful in your ventures in life. And I'm sure you've had some walls that you've hit as well. So
definitely.
That's what this is about. So why don't we start with where you were born and raised? And look at this, we're getting some amazing comments.
Of course, I got to put my glasses on to see it.
Hey, mine are permanent.
Yeah,
mine are permanent.
Yeah.
So we have Sophia saying wonderful things about you.
I love Sophia.
She's amazing. Doug Wing from the Little Giant Ladder Company. His dad invented Little Giant Ladders.
Really?
Amazing. Yes. Yeah. He's incredible. So Jennifer, I so want to call you Jen. You know that, right?
I told you just for you. You will be the one that owns Jen for me. Trademarked to Ken Walls.
All right, cool. So, Jen, where were you born and raised? You sound like you have like a Connecticut accent.
Here's what exactly is that, Ken?
I'm just kidding.
Educate me. What is the Connecticut?
I don't know.
I know. It's kind of like having a Midwest accent. People say that all the time, and I'm like, what does a Midwesterner sound like? I have no idea.
That's me.
Is that you? Yeah. That's your accent?
I guess.
You. Okay. Well, I was actually born in Portsmouth, Virginia, back in the day. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah.
But here's what's crazy. So my dad was from New York, born and raised, Central Park West in Manhattan. But he was in the Army. He was a colonel in the Army, and he was in the medical corps. He was a physician, and he actually was the commanding officer at Brooke Army Medical Center in San Antonio. And that's where he met my mother, who was a newspaper reporter, and she was covering an awards banquet he was speaking at, and that's how they met. So wow. I jokingly say my accent is a combination of New York and Texas. So I speak really fast with a Southern drawl.
Wow. So your dad was from New York?
My dad was from New York. Yeah,
Okay.
he sure was. He was.
So did he have that thick New York accent?
He did. He definitely did. And, to me growing up, now we only lived in Virginia for about 4 years of my life. Then when he retired fully from the military, we moved to Raleigh, North Carolina, and he went into quote unquote private practice. He was chief surgeon at Wake County Medical Center in Raleigh. And then when he fully retired, we moved back to San Antonio right before high school. And so I consider, San Antonio my hometown. This is where I grew up. But in terms of my father, it was hilarious because to me, just kind of technically being a Southern girl my whole life, it was just a New York accent. But when we would go to New York, which was about once a year to visit family, it was interesting to me because he just sort of morphed into this completely different person, number one, in terms of how he acted. And, it was hilarious. But then he could also just pick up like, nobody's business. Like if somebody was from the Bronx or from Queens, he could hear that. I could not hear that at all, but he definitely could. And that was interesting to me,
Wow.
Yeah.
So your life was as a kid. I mean, you were exposed to some cool cultural stuff.
I kind of was, I have sort of a crazy story about all that. So first of all, my maiden name was Merritt, which is why you say you can't even pronounce my second name, right?
Well, I was going to say Maret, but.
Yeah. Well, apparently it was short for Maretsky, but I did not even find that out till I was about 14 or 15 years old. Growing up, I went to an Episcopal private school. My father told me that our background was French. And I did find out after the fact that basically the bottom line is my father's family, they were all Ashkenazi Jews from Russia. Wow. And my grandfather, who I never met, he passed away long before I was born. He was a very prominent dentist and orthodontist in Manhattan. And it was sort of like a Jefferson story, moving on up to the east side. They went from, I guess, somewhere in Hudson, New York, I think, to Manhattan. And they had to hide their Judaism, so to speak, because nobody in, upscale New York was going to go to a Russian immigrant Jew as their dentist. So they told everybody they were French. They went by the last name Merritt. And in fact, when my grandfather passed away, he was actually president of the Orthodontic Society in Manhattan. Now, this was back at the turn of the century. I mean, my father was born in 1911. I used to freak out my friends by showing them his driver's license because it said 7911. And my friends were like,
my God.
That's weird. So, yeah,
wow.
He was when I was born. It was a second marriage for he and my mom. But so it was crazy. So I never knew that whole part of my history. I guess my father, apparently when his dad died, which was when he was 13, he converted to Christianity when he was a teenager. And so I was raised as a Christian and never really knew that. Now, my sister thinks that I was a complete idiot, my half sister who kind of grew up with me, because we would go to White Plains, New York, and my aunt was, very stereotypical, so to speak. You got to be sensitive in these times how you say that, but she just really was, darling puppy. Oh my gosh, lox and bagels. And my sister's like, how did you not pick up on that? And I'm like, I don't know. I'm living in Raleigh, North Carolina. I have no clue, so give me a break. But
oh my God, that's hilarious.
Yeah. And it was an interesting revelation when I found out, because we were actually, my father, on a sad note, he was very ill at the time, but my aunt had flown down and we were having sort of a family dinner together before my father went in for some surgery. And she lived 6 months out of the year in France. And her major had been French, and she spoke pretty much fluent French. And I had been taking French since kindergarten, which don't ask me anything in French. All I can do is sing a Christmas carol in French. That's it. Still to this day. But she was talking to me, and, I was about 13, 14 at the time. And she's talking to me in French. And then she basically asked me, what do you love about French? And I literally said, because it's our history. And the room went silent. And she looks up at my dad and goes, Ray, you told her we were French, in like this weird accent. And I was shocked. And my dad sunk down in his chair and was like, it was an awkward moment to say the least. So
what's this comment Joe Ingram's making? What's that all about?
Dude, I just got the most badass. Am I allowed to say that on your show?
Yes, of course. Say it.
Badass Jeep. I bought it 2 days ago, and it's a Jeep Rubicon 2020, brand new. Actually, I never buy brand new cars. Just saying, I'm more frugal than that. But they were making some great deals on cars right now, obviously, and we had a Suburban with a bajillion miles on it, and all my kids are older now and going off to college, and so I treated myself. I got a brand new
nice.
Jeep. I love it. And Joe Ingram, shout out to you, Joe. He's amazing. His wife is a Jeep dealer. And Joe, correct me if I'm wrong, drop it in the comments. But I think he told me his wife was like the #1 Jeep dealer in their region recently. It might be in the United States, but
I think she's definitely hit. I know that she's hit some national records. So I don't know currently. So growing up, you had all of this culture. I'll just say culture. And you found out, when did you find out that you were actually half Jewish?
So I was 14, 15 at the time, obviously, but I really, it was sort of unconfirmed. Does that make sense? Yeah. And then, so my dad died when I was 16, and that left a lot of unanswered questions for me, as you can imagine. Yeah. And my mother ended up passing away when I was 22. So I lost both my parents. I actually lost in the span of 9 years, I lost 4 family members. It's kind of crazy.
Wow.
But, I definitely, just a little side note. I mean, God was always by my side, and it really grew me as a person to go through that. But I say all that to say that there were years that I had a lot of, unanswered questions. DNA wasn't a thing back then. And really it was my aunt. She had retired in Hawaii. Her children were retired out there as well. And when I was pregnant with my first child, my husband and I flew out there and spent some time with her. And she sort of filled me in on somewhat why, my dad he didn't really lie to me, but he kind of left out that detail. Right. So, she explained sort of the background story on that. And it was pretty interesting, to say the least. But then fast forward, I finally did DNA just because, on my dad's side of the family, a lot of people had passed away from cancer. And now being in the health and wellness business for the last 6 years, I was just very intrigued. So I did a lot of different DNA tests. And of course, it came back that I am indeed 49.8% Ashkenazi Jew. So,
wow.
Yeah. So, and it's a crazy heritage, and you have to really be careful and do a lot of genetic research, because I jokingly say they're, not to bash Kentucky or Arkansas, but they were like the Kentucky of the Jews. They all intermarried, married their sisters and brothers and cousins. And, which is, that explains a lot about me, Ken.
That is funny. So you, you lost your parents early in life.
I did. And I don't want to say that they set me up for that, but they definitely prepared me. I think they knew, going in. I mean, it was a second marriage for both of them. I had half siblings on both sides, although my mother's daughter, my dad adopted, and she grew up technically as my full sister, but she's my full sister. But she was 13 years older than me, and I jokingly call her Doogie Howser because she graduated at 16 and went off to Wheaton College up in Massachusetts. But she was like a second mother to me. And she later became a PhD in immunology, and so she's kind of more the serious one in the family. I'm a little bit of the goofball and the rebel and the black sheep, but in terms of being the entrepreneur and all of that, because with my father being a physician, she was a PhD. My father's 2 kids from his first marriage, one was a lawyer, one became a PhD in sociology and taught at A&M. And, I grew up in this very degreed family where you went to school, you got a good job, 40 years, got the gold watch, the whole 9 yards. So it was interesting. But my dad had definitely had an entrepreneurial streak. And I saw that growing up. And I always say that must be where I got it from. I don't know.
So so you graduated high school?
Yes. Graduated college also. Texas.
You went to college. What did you study in college?
I was a public relations major.
Okay.
What was interesting is I went in broadcast journalism. My mother was a newspaper reporter, and I had done a lot of journalism, worked on the school paper and all that in high school, and really thought I wanted to go into broadcast journalism. But, speaking of walls, I mean, my own insecurities got the best of me. I realized it was a very competitive field. It was a lot of not what you knew, but who you knew, and also how you looked. And, being a kid really at that time with so many insecurities, I just thought, oh, I don't know. And I'd watched my mother in Raleigh, when we lived in Raleigh. She was actually the public relations director for the city of Raleigh.
Wow.
For several years. And I was super proud of her. She's kind of my boss babe role model, because she got written up at the time, this was back in the 70s, for being one of the highest paid government officials in the city of Raleigh, even though she was a woman, and that, was a big deal back then, obviously. So she was definitely a role model for me. So I switched to public relations and advertising at Tech.
Wow.
And here's where the kind of the funny part comes in for people who know me. Eventually Texas Tech, I think it was around my sophomore year, junior year, they no longer offered PR and advertising as one major. They split it, and you had to pick one. And so I picked public relations because I didn't want to do sales, and you had to take courses in sales for advertising. I was like, I do not like salespeople. They're creepy. They're weird. I'm picturing like the door-to-door guys. And so, yeah, I was like, no, I'm not doing.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you graduated college, and where did you go from there?
So it was interesting. My mother passed away in January of 1989. I graduated in June of 89. And so it was definitely a pivot point for me. I was dating a gentleman at the time who was from Dallas. So we moved to Dallas. And I ended up just literally hiring a recruiter, which was kind of a thing back then, and ended up getting a job with Dun & Bradstreet Business Information Services. And ironically, I just wanted to do like sort of training and customer service, where you would go in. If you're not familiar with Dun & Bradstreet, if you have a Dun number or D&B rating as a business, they're kind of the big brother of business. Yeah. So I would go in and, work with their clients. And it was funny because the man that I interviewed with, who I loved, Jim Edwards, to this day, amazing man. He was like, I just really think you need to be in sales. Just your personality. And I was like, nope, don't like salespeople. Don't want to do sales. You'll make more money in sales. I'm like, nope, not doing it. So they put me in customer service, but Jim was on me like almost every day. And what was hilarious was a lot of the customers I would go to service, eventually we'd build a relationship, and I'd start advising them on other services they could buy. Next thing you know, they're buying more services. And finally, my manager, okay, Jennifer, you're giving up commission at this point.
Right.
All these people are calling us back going, hey, we met with Jennifer and she told us about this, and just
what did you have against sales?
I think it was a lot of just fear, always, right? I love the quote about fear, false evidence appearing real, right? Yeah. So my false evidence was just, sort of what I'd heard growing up. My parents would say about salespeople, which were normally the annoying people that would come to the door selling things. Back then, whether it was Kirby vacuums or, whatever it was, Electrolux or whatever back in the day. Yeah. And so I just thought, ew, that's kind of creepy. And honestly, I didn't grow up around salespeople. So, I was very, unaware that they're some of the highest paid people on the planet, Right. And it wasn't until fast forward many years later when my sister Melissa and I were sitting down having a conversation one day, and she was working in research as a PhD in immunology, and we started talking income, and she's like, "Wow, you make way more than me, in sales than she was at the time in research, where she was, and I think she was working for NIH at the time, so she was working with the government. So wow, kind of did her income. Yeah,
I mean that's those are some real true statistics. That salespeople are the highest paid people on the planet. I love what Charles said here.
Yes. Oy vey.
Yeah. So
very timely, Charles.
But but they're also some of the lowest paid people on the planet. Like right? If you don't have the skill set, you can be really, really broke. So
Well, let me say something on that, Ken, because I believe everybody sells, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Hey, if you're married, you sold somebody something. You
Yep.
know what I mean? Like, I'm just saying. So
Yep.
everybody can sell, but it's, it's will over skill. And
Yeah.
a lot of people, just because they have the talent doesn't mean that they apply it or,
Right.
skill to do it. They just don't want to apply it. And that was actually me for, obviously a few years. So
Yeah. Yeah. Well, so you at Dun and Bradstreet, you eventually moved into a sales field or department
yeah,
position rather. And how did that go? Did it go well for you?
it went very well. I actually ended up breaking a record for the region. I've got
Wow.
something hanging in my office here about that. But yeah, I sold a record breaking what
Wow.
they called new piece of business to Phillips Industries, which was a huge company in Dallas, and that sort of set the precedent for the rest of my corporate sales career. I went from Dun and Bradstreet. I worked for them for about 4.5 years, and ended up when I ended up in Houston, I ended up going to work for a hospice. Ironically, it was at the time the nation's only for-profit hospice called Vitas,
Wow.
and it was a fit. The recruiter called me, and she was like, I see that you sell services, and it was a service. And then I had the medical background somewhat because of my family, but then also I had interned as a public relations major for Methodist Hospital in Lubbock when I was there at Texas Tech. So, and I had a personal reason for wanting to really promote hospice to physicians, because although we were in the military system with both my parents, no one had ever offered us hospice. And hospice was somewhat of a new concept back then, when my parents were ill back in the 80s. But I found out about it after the fact, and I felt like that whole multidisciplinary approach with the social workers and the chaplains really could have helped me a lot as a teenager, going through all that at the time, as well as my sister, who was doing the best she could to sort of mother me through that. And so, I really did have a huge why for hospice, and it was a passion. And it made me one of the top salespeople there, to the point where I ended up getting recruited away to go sell medical equipment for C.R. Bard. And
Wow.
That was my first foray into big money and a big sales position. I was proud of myself, because when the recruiter called me about that position, it was actually the same recruiter that I'd worked with to get my position at Vitas. And she said, Jennifer, this man has been through, the manager had been through, I don't know how many candidates, and he had gotten down to two finalists before, over the course of almost a year. But there was a test, and there's still a test out there called the SRI test, Sales Rep Intelligence Test, that Gallup offers to companies, where they'll take your top performing reps and they'll design an evaluation around it. It's a verbal evaluation where they call you on the phone. Yeah. And it's kind of like cable. They just say, we'll call you between this time and this time on this day. So you're just sitting there nervous as heck. In fact, I think the day I got my SRI call, I literally popped a beer and was walking out, drinking a beer, answering these questions, because they ask you very broad questions to see.
So like, do you day drink?
Yeah, literally. Thank God that wasn't a question. But they do ask you things like, have you ever stolen anything?
Really?
Yeah. Have you ever lied? And you'll say to them, well, can you elaborate on that? And they're like, no, just answer the question. And it's kind of crazy, because I didn't know if my answers. So I did what I did best, PR major, right?
Yeah.
Have you ever lied? And I'm like, yes, I lie every day, because I'll walk into a doctor's office, and the nurse up front, or the receptionist, like if she has a pink mohawk and is like, hey, what do you think of my hair? I'm like, oh my gosh, you look fabulous, girl. You look amazing. Because I'm not going to tell her, that her hair looks horrible, because I need to get back in there and see that doctor. And I guess that's the right answer, because Bard hired me. And my manager later told me that I literally he said he wasn't supposed to tell me this, by the way, but his name's Kimmin Woods. So if he ever sees your show, I might have to send it to him. Hi, Kimmin. But Kimmin said that I literally scored the highest on the SRI test in his entire career.
Wow.
Bard. And I was like, yeah, baby. Like that went on my resume, literally. So,
that's awesome. Yeah. Hey, we have Mike Muni watching. What's up,
hey,
Mike?
Mike? I'm like,
I love that dude. He is so amazing.
I worship Mike.
I know, he's incredible.
He's kind of like you, Ken. People don't realize how badass you are either, Ken. But Mike is like this gentle giant, but no one realizes he created a multi-billion-dollar category. Industry.
Complete industry. I know. Mike's amazing. He's been on the show. He's been on my show. He's incredible. So, and Charles said that I think he's blaming you that we have an entire generation of day drinkers now.
Could it be from my health and wellness company? Could it have vodka added? We don't know. No, it's fine.
So funny. So you sold in corporate America. We've established that for sure. You and it sounds like you've done very well in that. But at some point, I mean, in that sounds like it was in your early to mid 20s ish.
Yeah, it was early 20s. I was with Sierra Bard for a very short time. You know, I felt like
You say that again?
I was with Sierra Bard for a very short time. I jokingly say I came, I conquered, and I left because I won.
Who is that? What's that?
Sierra Bard, which was the company, it was medical equipment, and it was selling urology equipment and disposables. So I had this little machine that was about the size of a laptop that sold for, well, it depended. Government pricing was $6,200, but it was $8,200. I always said it sold for the price of a small Toyota. But It was an ultrasound that would scan the bladder for residual urine. Not that you want to hear all this, so that they wouldn't have to do as much intermittent cathing. And then I sold disposables, and I won't get into what those were, but they were primarily catheters. So I jokingly say I was a lot of fun at parties because I had plastic models of different genitalia.
So my gosh.
Show people how to do, because I was in service, the nurses, on how to do the path. Yeah, because if you've ever heard of a Foley catheter, Dr. Foley worked for C.R. Bard. So they're considered the gold standard in urology, if we have any urology fans on here.
I'm thinking probably not, but maybe. You never know.
But I sold the largest account for Bard patient care division ever. And when that happened, it was to Brooke Army Medical Center. Shortly after that, I had started dating my husband. Now we've been married almost 25 years, but I was traveling all the time. I was gone 3 weeks out of every month. So he said, you got to do something different. And I ended up, which I thought was very beneath me at the time, because we used to make fun of drug reps, but at the time, to be sister-in-law was a drug rep, and she somewhat recruited me into pharmaceutical sales. And to make a very long story short, I was a cardiovascular specialty rep in pharmaceutical sales in the Texas Medical Center for 15 years with Novartis, AstraZeneca. And then my last company was a biotech company. And that was before I entered network marketing, which is where I've been for the last 14 years.
So, and so we're going to talk, we'll touch on the pharmaceutical thing just a little, but I'm not a huge big pharma fan myself, but and I think there's a lot. I know you're one of them. We've had lots of conversations offline. Karen Toddy, you see that? I miss that we're day drinking.
Here's Karen. Actually, this is a healthy drink, but hey, I will not judge you, Karen. Because all my friends that are watching who know me well, they call me a hypocrite. Just saying.
They're like, that's not a health drink. That's Zinfandel she has in that cup.
Yeah.
So look, anybody I've ever known in pharmaceutical sales was, I mean, even if they sucked, they were still making six figures. Mm-hmm. And so, I'm sure you were in the high six figures. And what's interesting to me is you decided, you had a moment of clarity, we'll call it. Mm-hmm. And you said, I'm really tired of making hundreds of thousands of dollars a year. I think I'm going to get into network marketing.
Yeah, because everybody wakes up and says, "Please sign me up in network marketing," which basically back then I thought was a pyramid scheme. So
Right.
no, that was not. Especially now in our industry, I say that, if anyone says that they looked for a network marketing company and joined it, at least people my age, they're lying, because most of them
Right.
were taped and thrown in the back of a trunk and taken to their first network marketing meeting. I mean, it's highly unusual for people to, seek out network marketing. Now, I think it's a little more common today, but at least. And maybe I'm coming from a different reference point, obviously, just on the way I was raised. But being in a house full of technically degreed professionals, right?
Yeah.
Just network marketing was a joke in our family. And back then, of course, the only company that I would hear on a regular basis being made fun of was Amway, which I knew zero about network marketing. All I knew is don't do it, basically. And so fast forward, I was working for a biotech company called CV Therapeutics. It's now Gilead. And it was a brand new job for me. And I was super excited about it because, Ken, I will say this just to kind of give you a little background. So over the course of those 15 years that I was in pharma, I proceeded to have a family. And, I had my first child, Merritt. And then 4 years roughly later, we had Michael. And then 3.5 years later, we had Karis. And yes, I made a ton of money. And I literally hit the ceiling in network marketing, in pharmaceuticals.
Yeah.
I was a district trainer. I was in a management candidate program for a while. I'd been put up for pharmaceutical rep of the year. I was making more money than I'd ever made in my life. When I joined the biotech company, they had offered me stock options. I was driving a Lexus as a company car. They were telling me I could be retired as a millionaire in 4 years on those stock options. The whole board was from Amgen and Genentech, if you've done any investing in biotech. So that was my ticket out, because, and a lot of people would say, well, why would you want to ticket out from an amazing, well-paying job? Well, my husband, had worked in construction equipment for 15 years as a salesperson, and had started his own company on the side that had taken off. And so now we both have these two very demanding careers, and we're trying to raise productive citizens as children. And we were spending a large portion of our income paying someone else to raise our kids. And it was getting tougher and tougher. I mean, I don't know if this would resonate with you as a dude, but it's a little difficult. For me, I was C-sectioned with all three of my kids. And so
yeah, I can't, I was not C-sectioned, so I cannot relate.
You haven't had any? So, but in the corporate world, they would give you 6 weeks off. If you had a C-section, it was 8 back then. That was it. That's all you got. And so with Merritt, my oldest, I was dropping her off at a little Montessori school at 8 weeks of age. And I cried I'm a little bit lying. I cried, and then I went, woohoo, and went all the way to the med center, because I was, I had this newborn that I'd been with for 8 weeks. But overall, it was very, difficult. I literally, if you've ever seen the movie Bad Moms, I was Mila Kunis. I was that character. I was rolling up in the minivan, throwing the store-bought donuts at the room mom, for everything. I was late all the time picking up my kids, because I'd get stuck down in the med center. I wasn't around during, because we were all specialty in the Texas Medical Center. So I was cardiovascular and respiratory. So during allergy season, we were doing dinner programs 24/7. So I wouldn't, I'd leave at 6:37 in the morning, wouldn't get home till 10 o'clock at night.
Oh my gosh.
So, it was a beat down. And I'm not saying cry for me. I made a lot of money, but at what cost? Right.
Right.
And so all this is going on with me. And fast forward, I'm at biotech, and I meet this girl. And the first wave that CV Therapeutics hired, and I'll give you a little foreshadowing too. It's a funny story, but when I was on maternity leave with my third baby, while I was on maternity leave, 2 things happened. Number one, I wrote my very first book called, not shameless plug, Pill Pushers. This is a dog-eared copy, but I wrote this with a friend of mine, Seth Guerra, who was working as a district manager at AstraZeneca. I was now getting ready to start my biotech career, and it wasn't on the horizon yet. And I got this phone call And I didn't know the number, so I rolled it to voicemail. And when I listened to it, it was this district manager who had judged me for some contest that I'd won in AstraZeneca. And he said, "Hey, Jennifer, this is George Hill. I'm calling because I have this huge business opportunity for you. I mean, and if you do it right, you'll be retired as a millionaire in 3 to 4 years. So call me back." And I literally looked at my husband and went, "Oh my God, George joined Amway. Like, I am not going back. Like, I was not interested in network marketing." And that's what I thought it was. And fast forward, it wasn't. It was actually, he was calling me about CB Therapeutics, which I ended up taking that job. But in that job, I met the girl who eventually led me to network marketing. Her name's Denise Toot. Shout out to Denise. But that changed the course of my life. And she's the one that introduced me to it.
Wow. So, and I'm, again, you were in the hundreds of thousands a year.
Mm-hmm. Oh, right? Yeah. Total package. I mean,
health insurance, everything.
Health insurance, car. I mean, it was a good $250,000 a year or more. Yeah.
So, well, it makes sense to leave that then to go into network marketing.
Absolutely. So, yes.
But I mean, and look, I know people making millions a year in network marketing. So, you know, and with the right energy and attitude, you can really do well in network marketing. So you left, and what kind of, did you get into Amway then? Because it sounds like you were headed down the Amway track.
No, we're not going down the Amway track. But shout out to them, because I've learned a lot about Amway, and they've created a lot of entrepreneurs, and more than anything, they've created a lot of people who have had huge personal growth.
Yes.
You know, even if they didn't get a lot of income through that program per se, but they fought a lot of battles. And you know, to this day, I get a lot of people who go, "Oh, you're in network marketing, like Amway? Aren't they in business? Didn't they get shut down as a pyramid?" And I go, "Do you ever watch the Orlando Magic? You know who owns or owned the Orlando Magic?
Right.
They play in Amway Arena, you know, no, they're just fine." But they did have a bad, in my opinion, approach, obviously, that caused a lot of people to, you know, because there's a right way and a wrong way to approach people. You know, I tell everybody, if you've got to sell them an opportunity, then you've got to sell them every day to work it. So you don't want to have to sell somebody into becoming an entrepreneur or working for themselves or making side income. That has to be a choice they have to make. And a lot of people, at least in my company, the way we approach it is we really prefer them to be customers first. And when they fall in love with the product, then they want to refer other people. And it a lot of times will naturally lead to them building a business, which now in today's day and age is sort of accepted. I mean, that's technically what affiliate programs are. And there's a lot of affiliates out there for different products on Amazon or Instagram or, you know.
I'm an Amazon influencer. I get paid to recommend products. So there's not a thing wrong with it.
Yeah. So the way it happened for me, though, to answer your question, is Denise had overheard, it's kind of a crazy story, but she had overheard a conversation when we were in training for CB Therapeutics between my husband and I, who I adore, but he's definitely a little more financial savvy than I am. He's kind of the saver, I'm the spender. And, you know, we were going to a church at the time that was meeting in a school, but they had bought 16 acres to build a church. And I had put us down without telling him for an extra $250 to $300 a month for their building campaign. And he called me when we were in training, not happy, because he's like, "I just got this pledge card in the mail, and why on earth did you put us down for $300 a month?" So we're kind of having a discussion about that. And my friend Denise is sitting in the hotel room listening. And I guess she just filed that away, because fast forward, and Denise didn't even know what she was doing back then, but I literally told her those moments leading up to and into my entry into network marketing, I have taught over and over and over again as a training on what you need to understand about people. And that's that they are starved in one of 4 areas of their life, always. I mean, us included. You either don't have enough time, you don't have enough money, maybe you don't have enough relationship in terms of, you know, for me as a working mom, I couldn't really do things on the relationship side, like be the room mom, be the team mom, things like that. So I threw money at everything, right? Instead of actually being there. So that's relationship. And then lastly, now, at least the last 6-7 years that I've been involved with health and wellness, people are definitely, and hello pandemic, starved in the area of health. They are struggling with their health. I mean, we have, unfortunately, an epidemic of poor health here in our country outside of the pandemic. So at the end of the day, she didn't really come after me on time, even though I desperately needed my time back. But unlike you, Ken, I knew no one who had made millions in network marketing.
Right.
No. I mean, I knew, and that's probably added to my low opinion of it, because I would see people start up and not stick with it and quit.
Yeah.
Or it was a bunch of women that were bored kind of stay-at-home moms, doing it for extra income. So it didn't resonate with me that I could potentially either replace or much less, experience the financial freedom that I have now through network marketing. That was never even on my radar. She didn't come after me on money. And yes, Karen, you're absolutely right. You've got to find a product that resonates with you.
Yeah.
But she didn't come after me on money either, because we made the same amount of money.
Right.
Really came after me on relationship. She just said, listen, your church is building a church. And the company she was with was an energy company that's still around. In fact, I think we might have some mutual friends that have been in that company, but they were a large electricity and later natural gas company. And that was networking energy as a product. And she said, why don't you just switch a few electric bills? Texas had just deregulated, and let all those proceeds, because it's free for people to switch. You're not asking them for money. And all the proceeds that you make, you can just give it to your church's building campaign. And that way Sean won't be mad at you, So that's sort of how I fell into network marketing. I mean, it's almost to the point where it got misconstrued later. When I had a lot of success, people would call me up and say, okay, how did you set up the fundraiser with your church? And I'm like, I didn't do it that way. I have a little bit of a personal opinion on that kind of stuff. I don't believe in asking churches to participate in network marketing, because I don't ever want to be responsible for somebody not going back to church because they weren't successful in network marketing. You know what I mean?
Right.
So at the end of the day, I just made it my personal mission. And, I don't want to just keep talking forever, but I ended up sort of becoming famous in that company for the story of what led to me eventually going full-time in network marketing, because I experienced almost in a funny way, the power of residual income. And, it was nuts.
Yeah. Well, I think, and I personally think you should go to anybody. And this is why I hear what you're saying about the church thing, but there is a point where people have to take personal responsibility for their own lives. It wouldn't be your fault. Like, I failed at network marketing, so I'm never going back to church again. Like, what? It
wasn't about that. It was more about, people thought I set up something with the pastor and had the pastor tell the church about it. And I have an issue with that. The one time Jesus kind of got upset in the Bible is with the money changers in the temple. So, and it's not that network marketing is gambling. But to an extent, you don't know what people are going to do with their business. Just like the stock market's gambling to a degree, because you don't know what stocks are going to do long term. Nobody has that crystal ball. So you can guess and you can hope and you can invest, but you don't really know ultimately what the future holds. So that's a weird thing. But on my end, I just literally made a pledge between God and I just, adjust my halo over here. And I literally, when I started hitting that 250, I gave all my bonus money to the church. And then when I started hitting 250, $300 a month religiously, no pun intended, I started having my checks direct deposited to my church. And then here's what I tell everybody. I quit network marketing. I stopped. I went back to my pharmaceutical job. I got real focused on that.
Wow.
I had started.
Wait, hold on. You are the fastest talking Texan I've ever met. So
yeah. Hello, my New York side.
So I'm teasing you, but you you did network marketing for how long? Hold it. Let me back up even further.
Okay.
You were working in pharmaceutical sales. Oh, what's her name? I can't remember her name now. Denise told you about, I said, oh, what's her name? Denise tells you about this opportunity. Did you go to a network marketing meeting?
Yes. Well, she basically, this is exactly how the conversation went. 1000%. I still remember where I was. I was getting out of my car at what was then called Gulf Coast Medical Group down here. I was actually, unloading stuff for a lunch, and my phone rang, and Denise literally goes, "Hey, what are you doing?" And I said, "I'm walking into a lunch right now. I really can't talk. Can I call you back?" And she goes, No. I have a business opportunity for you. And as soon as I heard those two words, no, I was like, Denise, literally, I don't have time for this, girl.
Right.
I do business opportunities, whatever potion, lotion, pill, home decor, juice, whatever you're selling. I will do a party for you. I will buy stuff from you, but I don't do network marketing. Thanks. I got to go. And she said, whoa. You got to hear me out. It's electricity. And then I was like, okay, what? She goes, it's electricity. And I go, what kind of parties do you do for that? Do you stick your tongue in a light socket and turn on and off light switches? I go, I don't know how many thousands of dollars you invested in this electricity pyramid thing, but get your money back. I mean, that's a scam. And that's how it all started. And really, if you haven't met me, which you have, I can be a little bit of a know-it-all. And I launched a mission to save her from herself. I was researching, and I'm like, she's getting scammed. I am going to look into this. And of course, the first thing I did when I put into kind of the new internet back then, I was like, electricity, the name of the company, and the first thing that pops up is ripoff report or watchdog. And it was like, it's a scam, run for the hills, like. And I'm sending her all this stuff, and she goes, that's interesting, because they have an energy license with the PUC, which I would have thought they would have done everything short of a colonoscopy on that company before they granted them an energy license. And so those were the kind of arguments we were having.
Yeah.
And she just dug in like a pit bull. And really, ultimately, what got me to my first meeting was her brother-in-law, who was really good looking, came down to Houston, and she goes, just go meet Richard. He's a good looking guy. He's going to take you out, and I'm like,
you're married.
Married too. I'm not interested. But she's just funny about it. She's like, to bring some of your single girlfriends, they'll love him, and I'm like, oh my gosh. And I found out later it's because she did not like her sister-in-law at the time, I think.
Oh,
but anyway, it's funny. I'm just being real. So but seriously, Richard's an amazing guy. We go to meet Richard. I bring my only friend in network marketing who had done 15 different companies. No, I'm just kidding. I'm exaggerating. But she'd done Mary Kay, Pampered Chef, all of them. And she was sort of my phone a friend that came with me. And we go and we have dinner. And I was so cocky. Shocker. I was so cocky. I'm like, I'll make it over there if I can, because he had to go. He's like, we got to go. TikTok, it's starting right now. I'm like, you go ahead and go. I'm like, I didn't want to walk in first because I thought they're going to be like, oh, we're so glad you're here. Here, sign in blood. Welcome to the cult.
Yeah.
And so I didn't want to be there early at all. And so I literally was just like, okay, well, I'll just roll in there, I don't know, halfway through.
Yeah.
And so we get there late.
Welcome to the cult. That is hilarious.
Yeah. So we get there late. We roll in. First of all, we can't even get in the room. It is packed. And I mean, there's people in the hallways, and I look over and I see a news anchor from, and I'm like, oh, she must be here to do the news. And then I come to find out, no, because they called her up and she's one of the speakers. And then there were some Astros in the room and some Rocket players. And I was just like, wow, I'm an idiot, So at that point, and I was like, how much is it to join this thing again? And they're like $329. And I'm like, and Denise she didn't look at me, but she told me this on the phone. She said, Jennifer, you have done stupider things with $329. And in Napa Valley, I watched you because I was buying wine. Like I must have bought $500 worth of wine when we were out there for training,
Yeah.
So I was like, all right, $329. We'll give it a shot, And it kind of became a game for me in the beginning. And it was just fun. And I did my first meeting and 14 drug reps showed up. And we were in a little backroom kitchen at this place called Prego's in Rice Village here in Houston. And it only holds 12. And 14 showed up. They all signed up. And that's how I got rolling.
So you were still working for the medical company.
Yeah.
So you were doing the side hustle gig. I love that.
Oh, yeah. And I was scared to death because
you're like, you think this is cool, Doc? Wait till you hear about my side hustle.
No. And here's what's crazy. I never mixed the two, almost to my detriment, because I would find out that doctors, later had joined this company. And I'm like, really? I should have said something. But I was too afraid,
That is so funny.
I was afraid.
That is too funny. You're like, really? You joined and I just talked to you.
Yeah. So, because my mindset, you talk about breakthrough walls. My mindset, Ken, honestly, I think even when I went full time in network marketing, it was a good year and a half where I was still technically apologizing for network marketing. Like when people would go, so what do you do at a party? And I was no longer in pharma. I'd be like,
yeah,
like whispering. And then what was crazy is when I finally started to own it, people are like, I did network marketing too one day, one time,
one day.
Whatever, 1 day, 2 weeks,
right,
a year, but they all started coming out of the woodwork and a lot of them were my friends. And I'm like, I never know you, okay, wait a minute. You were in network marketing? And I'm like, how come you never told me? And one thing I tell everybody now when I train is I'm like, you can't be a closet network marketer.
Right.
That's an oxymoron, like jumbo shrimp or, I mean, no, you've got to tell people that you're in business.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
That's what a great story. Number one. So, okay. So back to the story. I can't even believe we've been on here already 52 minutes. This is an hour-long show. We're going to have to go over. Anyway, that's insane. That feels that's
not even the craziest story. And in fact, they would, and I'll tell it to you really quickly, but they would trot me out like the mule at the Kentucky Derby to tell this story at my old company. And that's because I worked it just hard enough and long enough. Okay. Yeah. The essence of the word network. Hey, your network is your net worth, baby.
Amen.
But I worked it just hard enough to get to that $300 a month. And then I started having my checks direct deposited to my church. They had promoted me to a launch trainer for a new drug called Renexa that we were launching for CV Therapeutics. 3 kids, Christmas was coming up, had a ski trip, all the excuses in the world. And I'd started one of the largest meetings for that company here in Houston, but I sort of handed the reins over. And occasionally I would still go to the meetings, but I wasn't bringing anybody with me. I wasn't talking about the business. I wasn't signing anybody up. I'd literally gone dark. And our number one income earner, this guy, Presley Swaggerty in my old company, he was a former basketball coach and a math teacher. And I don't know if you know him or not, because he's a big speaker now. But he literally would call me and call me and call me. And every time I saw his number on my phone, I'd roll him to voicemail because I didn't want him to give me some kind of Hoosiers, Coach Carter speech about get back in the game. He talked like this, he was always like, there's 4 keys to why the business is rock. That's how he talked. So he finally calls me from a number that I do not recognize. And I literally take his call and it was like running into my personal trainer with a chocolate cake in my cart. I was like, oh, well, I've been busy and I'm sorry and blah. And he goes,
oh God.
And to my surprise, he goes, well, I've just been trying to call you. Hang on, because I got to go into a meeting. I just got one thing I've been trying to tell you, that he was like, talked real slow. And I'm like, hurry it up. So he literally tells me that I needed to log into my back office. And then he hung up on me. He was like, just log into your power center and call me back. Click. Rude. I was like, hang up on me. So I didn't even remember how to log into my back office.
You said rude.
Clue. I had no clue how to log. I couldn't remember my password. I had to wait till the next day because he called me in the evening.
Oh my
God. Logged in. Ken, listen to this. So literally, I go over to associates. Last time I'd looked at the number of associates, 3940. I had like 182 associates.
Oh my gosh.
So I go over to commissions, which they called MEI, monthly energy income. I go over to my MEI checks, over $1,200 a month being direct deposited to my church.
The church. Shut up.
Serious as a heart attack, which my husband's like, no wonder Pastor Ruzika was like, thanks for coming. Like, every Sunday. Like, and I would tell everybody from stage, I'm like, now I love Jesus and all. I quit having those checks direct deposited. And I was like, that's it. I'm a changed woman now, because I tell everybody on a serious note, I'm like, that $1,200 a month was life-changing for me as a drug rep, because I made a lot more than that. It was that it had happened without me for like 3 months. I was gone. And I would look out when I would close out meetings for them later. I would look at people and say, could you walk away from what you're doing right now and go park your butt on a hammock in Belize and order yourself a pina colada for 3 months and even have a job or a small business, much less a raise when you got back? And the answer, 90% of the population was hell no.
Right.
I'd be out of business or I'd be fired from my job.
Right.
And I was hooked. I was like, I got a taste of what that was like. And I was watching a lot of people around me making 5 and 6 figures a month.
Yeah.
A month. You don't see that. Here I am with my little, I'm all important because I'm making 6 figures a year.
Right.
That totally took the lid off what I thought was possible financially.
Wow.
Totally. Yeah.
Wow. What a funny story. I mean, unless you have somewhere to be, let's just keep going. You don't mind, do you?
I'm good. I've got another podcast at 7:00 tonight, but other than that,
so JR said, close the deal, rebook her. No, we're not rebooking you. We're going to keep going. So,
hey, I'm going to petition to get the Glenn, Ken, and what was it? Glenn, Ken,
and
Jen,
a guy named Scott.
And a guy named Scott. Jen, Glenn, Ken, and a guy named Scott.
How did you all of a sudden get top billing on a show that's not even yours?
Oh, did I say that with my name first?
So
ladies first.
Yeah, right. So I'm
just teasing.
So you went, I know you are. You went to, I mean, so you find out that you're investing $1,200 a month into the growth of your church. And you were like, crap.
I was literally like, oh my gosh. And then I kind of, went the other way. Like I got so excited about network marketing that in a way, what had made me successful in the beginning sort of stopped, because I tried to take what was making me successful in pharmaceutical sales, and suddenly I brought that over into like home meetings. I started taking over presentations instead of using tools like DVDs or videos or whatever. I started wearing a suit. I started giving PowerPoints, and people loved it. Great information, but they stopped joining.
Yeah.
And I found out later, actually, it was another top earner in that company who, when I wasn't seeing any more growth, and I was kind of complaining about it one day, like, I don't know what I'm doing wrong. I mean, I'm doing these fabulous meetings. Everybody says you're this great speaker and they love the information, but they're not signing up.
Right.
He goes, oh God. He goes, please don't tell me that you brought the hotel meeting into your living room. And I said, what do you mean? And he said, here's the problem. In network marketing, people need to know that they can do it.
Yep.
And he said, and you're great, Jennifer. I mean, you're awesome. We love you. But you're standing up there in your suit, giving a PowerPoint, doing the number one thing that people, fear ahead of death, which is public speaking.
Yep.
And they're like, man, it's great, but I have to buy a laptop. I have to buy a suit.
Yep.
I got to be that girl. And it wasn't duplicatable.
Well, and Ray Higdon, who's a friend of mine, and I think you're friends with Ray, he tells a similar story about how he saw these people not sign up with this fantastic guy that was decked out and dressed to the nines, and then some woman comes along that's like very, very, very average, and kind of not even dressed well, and everybody literally everybody in the room signed up when she was done.
Well, one of my
reason is because they thought,
yeah, I can do it.
He can do it. I can do it.
Exactly. And one of my longtime mentors, in fact, he's the CEO of the company I'm with now, Logan Stout. He literally, he was a cocky, ex-pro baseball player. When he got dragged to his first meeting in network marketing, it was the same thing. And he said this woman walked out and she was making, all this money. She's a top earner. And he's watching her. And he was like, Jennifer, she was horrible. Horrible. And he said he literally leaned over to his friend and he goes, how much money is this lady making a month? Yeah. Oh my gosh. If she's making that, I'm going to make 20 times that, And so, people think they have to be a salesperson or they have to be the slick professional. But really, I tell people now more than ever in network marketing, what I love about our industry, because of all the technology we have now, is it's so easy to use tools. It's so easy to use tools and let it do all that work for you, you know?
I love that. I absolutely love. And I remember Ray telling me that story, very similar. Right. I was like, oh my God, that's so true. That's what causes people to fail is they get into their mind that they can't do it. They cannot accomplish what Jennifer's doing. So although that was a fantastic presentation and man, the numbers look good.
Yeah.
It's going to be for somebody else, not me. I'm not capable of that.
Yeah. And they actually, and I know you've heard the term before, but they actually call it ignorance on fire, right?
Yeah.
When you're brand new and you're ignorance on fire, that's usually when you have your most success because you're so scared that you're using all the tools because you don't know. Like even when I started, with my first company, I was using a DVD. I was just running around going, you got to hear this guy that talks like this, and I'd plug it in and, and then there was another guy who was a cowboy that was there with him and he was hilarious. And I was like, they're amazing. But the more times I watched it, the more I thought, oh, they forgot this because I got more knowledge. So I'm like, oh, they forgot to tell about this and they need to tell about that. And then suddenly what went from like, a 20-minute little DVD, I was keeping the person sitting there for an hour and a half, overselling them, instead of just saying, is this for you or not? Boom, So yeah, exactly. That or they overthink it. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep.
So you did the energy thing for how long?
8 years. It was 8 years. And I jokingly say I failed my way to the top. I was the girl that they sort of made fun of because it was a coded comp plan. Not that anybody would know that who's not in network marketing what that is, but it basically means you have to build separate teams each time you advance. And every time I would rank advance and had to start over, I'd be like, oh, and I'd quit. Basically, I would disappear and then I would come back, which is unusual. Usually, it's that whole, law of physics, right? A body in motion remains in motion, a body at rest remains at rest. Right. But I would come back and because I don't know, I mean, really from a personal development standpoint and, fast forward now, I'm a John Maxwell certified coach and I love John Maxwell. And he wrote in the 21 irrefutable laws of leadership, the number one thing about the law of the lid is that your level of success and your level of influence or income or any of that will never exceed your level of personal growth, right? And I was not growing. I was a know-it-all. I was like, I don't need to learn anything. I'm teaching people. I was a district trainer in pharmaceutical.
Yeah. Right.
That was me. So I really had this unteachable, uncoachable side to me. And it took a lot of failure and a lot of failing and watching people succeed anyway, where I was like, well, how did that person, while I was gone for 3 months, rank advance? How did that guy from he was a friend of mine, this guy, Trey Dyer, but he was from Baird, Texas. I think they have one stoplight, a tumbleweed, and a cop car, and he rank advanced to the top of the company in 10 months or something crazy. And I'd been there for 4 years slogging,
wow.
and hadn't gotten to that level. And you come to a point, I think, and I think all entrepreneurs do this as well. And it's a lot of what causes breakthrough, I believe. But you just come to this point where you can't blame your situation anymore. You have to look in the mirror and realize, if it is to be, it's up to me. And I need to grow. I need to get around other people. I need to get mentored. I need to humble myself and submit myself to being teachable and coachable, because it reminds me of, Ken, I know you're about my age, but you remember Fast Times at Ridgemont High?
Of course.
Remember Spicoli? They wrecked the car.
Dude.
And he's like, my dad, what is he?
My dad's a refrigerator repairman.
He's got an awesome set of tools. Remember?
Yeah.
So they're going to try to fix the car with a TV repairman or refrigerator repairman tools. And that's what people do in network marketing. They come into network marketing with their set of tools, and they try to apply them and from their job, and it doesn't work. So my number one prerequisite is they got to be, coachable and teachable. Weldon, you should do it. It's a great program. The coaching program, it's amazing. And a lot of people don't maximize, it sounds like a pun again, but they don't maximize their Maxwell coaching like they should. It's almost like network marketing or any industry, right? You got 2% that really apply what they learned and go for it. But it's the same way in the coaching program, but it's a great program. Really is.
Wow. So you left the energy company. I guess you left completely.
Yeah. So that was an interesting journey. I had some personal reasons for leaving too. We were doing a lot of traveling with that company. Obviously we were regulated, some states were deregulated, some weren't. So we would achieve our license in the states and we would open new states. And when that would happen, you're gone, because it's like a whole new company launch. And it was a little bit crazy. It had taken a toll a little bit on my family. After 8 years, I was the number 40, I don't know how that works on here, earner. So, I was top 50. I'd reached the highest level of the company. I was driving the free Mercedes-Benz that they offered. And I was making, let's just put it this way, I was making just enough to stay home with my kids, but I still wasn't knocking it out of the park. I really hadn't even started to, in terms of overall income package wise, I hadn't replaced my income in pharma. But, when you get a taste of residual income and really living life on your terms, making, let's say, $3,500 to $6,000 a month, and you can stay at home and still make that, versus go work at a job and trade hours for dollars, it ends up being a cash equivalent business. And it's like living on royalties or residual, whatever. So I was used to it. I didn't want to go back and get a job. And I was literally sitting on a beach at a top earners award trip for my other company when rumors were flying around the beach that our number 2 earner, Logan Stout, was going to be starting his own network marketing company. And of course, he instantly became the plague. Nobody wanted to be around him. And honestly, I wasn't unhappy. I still say it to this day. That company was my first love. I learned everything there. The people there, many of them to this day are still like family to me, and I adore them. And it was really kind of strange. And so I'll say this. We hear that rumor, and then I go home. And it was about 2 months later, and it was in early July of 2013. And I'm cleaning my house. And at the time, I never watched the news at all. I had sort of gone through enough personal development to have turned off the boob tube. But I flipped on the TV just for noise. It was on Fox News, and there was Logan. It was like a God thing. He's on Fox National News, being interviewed in a segment titled, "Can You Be a Multimillionaire by the Age of 25?" And I sat down on my couch and I thought, wow. And Logan was always really great. He was part of my upline in my former company. He would call me all the time. He was 12 years younger than me, but he was kind of like Wonder Boy, you know? And that's sort of what I chalked it up to was, of course, he's going to go start his own network marketing company. That's a logical next step. He had been a top earner at Advocare. He had gone to the company I was with, became a top earner number 2. And I'd watched him make $150,000, $200,000 a month in that company, you know? And he had started the Dallas Patriots, which he still owns to this day. It's one of the world's largest select baseball organizations. He's just a badass like you, Ken. And when I
don't own a baseball team.
Yeah, well, you've got Grant Cardone's number in your cell phone. That makes you a badass in my book, since I'm obsessed with Grant. But anyway, so fast forward, I literally finally just picked up the phone and called him. And I said, all right, I got to know what you're doing. And he started to tell me, and, you know, without going into a big sales pitch on the company, I was super impressed, but I was, you know, my Dun & Bradstreet background kicked in. And I said, wow, it's a startup. You know, my other biotech company had been a startup and there was a lot of hiccups. And plus I knew from being in D&B that, you know, the reason most small businesses fail is due to lack of capital. So the first thing I said is, well, how much capital have you raised, you know, to start the business? And he said, well, my goal is to raise about $5 million in strategic capital over the next few weeks. And I said, well, when you've done that, call me back. And he called me back in 72 hours. He had raised over $10 million. He had cut off investing. And the one that got me was he texted me, and by the way, Ross Perot now owns 5% of the company.
Wow.
And I don't know about you, Ken, but I figure the Perot family knows a little bit more about business plans than I do. So I literally said, I will be in Dallas in 2 days. And that's how it started. And
wow.
And then I kind of went through what I consider the next 4 to 6 months was like a journey between heaven and hell, because I cut ties with my former company. I'll try to make it a short story, but I cut ties with my former company. I resigned. Of course, they told everybody they terminated me, which was not the case. In the beginning, the whole thing was supposed to be amicable because they said, hey, it's wellness. We don't care. And we understand you want to be home more and everything's fine. But I guess when they saw sort of the influence that I had, they freaked out and made an example out of me, because there were some other people that had left and gone to other companies and they didn't come after them like that. But they petitioned for me to unfriend over 1,000 people on Facebook, saying that I was cross recruiting them simply because, you know, they weren't in my downline and we'd become friends. And they were threatened basically and trying to blow my role. And ironically, the vast majority of my team didn't even come from my old company. A lot of it came from people just watching me for 8 years build something else and be consistent with it and be the credibility and all of that and the relationships. And plus some people who didn't like energy liked health and wellness. So
right.
You know, but I went through a lot. I mean, they tried to sue me for $100,000, just FYI. Of course, that never went through. You can Google it, but it never went through. It's not out there anywhere. So I'm just telling you that. But it was a crazy ride, and I got my heart broken in a lot of ways. But it gave me purpose. And I always say, hell hath no fury like a woman scorned. And I literally would envision the CEO of my former company walking into a room like I'd seen him do with other people and say, Jennifer Moran went to this company and failed. And that's what got me out of bed every day and put my feet on the floor and made me work my ass off. And when we officially launched, I was the #1 income earner. And I've held that position for the last 6 years.
Wow.
That may change this year. Kind of a long story as to why, but yeah, it's been an amazing ride. I love the company that I'm with. I love the people, and I've had a massive opportunity to change people's lives through not only health and wellness, but also financially over the last 14 years on the financial side.
Do you get a free car with this company?
You know, it's interesting the way this company's set up. It's part of what attracted me to it. It's called, and I'll just say the name of the company, it's called ID Life, and it stands for Individually Designed Life. And Logan really felt like it would be somewhat hypocritical to talk about individually designed life, because the core of what we do is individually designed vitamins based on your DNA and your epigenetics, which is your lifestyle, through an assessment that's HIPAA compliant. So he said, we can't talk about personalized vitamins and then be a personalized company and have everybody driving a one size fits all car. And plus, Logan was a theology major from DBU. He was a youth pastor for a long time. And a lot of these network marketing programs are get into debt programs where they give you the money for the car, but you go buy the car, you lease the car.
Right.
But if you don't qualify for the car the next month, you lose the money.
Right.
A lot of people don't realize is that materialism sends people out to buy a car, but then if they don't qualify, they're struggling to make the payment. So the way ID Life does it, they put it right into your check. It's part of the car bonus program. You can use it to pay off the car that you have. You can go buy a new car with it if you choose. But we didn't want it to be a get into debt program. So
wow.
Pretty cool.
That is so awesome. That's awesome. And you've been the #1 income earner for 6 years?
6 years. I guess it became, we did a soft launch in January of 2014.
Yeah.
And then our hard launch was May of 2014. So it's been about 6 years. Yeah. But recently another health and wellness company kind of sort of did their reps dirty. I felt like that's another long story that we should do at another time, but sort of said, let them eat cake. But they've merged with ours for all intents and purposes. So that may change the rankings, but I don't want to say I don't care. I'm a competitive person, but at the end of the day, you start network marketing for the money, but what keeps you there is the mission of changing lives. Yeah. And if it just adds more voice for us to get out there and really talk to people about living their best life possible, physically, financially, emotionally, spiritually, and relationally, that's what I'm about. So that's where I'm at.
Jennifer Moran. Never to be confused, by the way, with Moran.
Moran.
Because
Weird Al Yankovic.
You're not. You are a brilliant, very talented woman. And I'm like, your story is hilarious. The funniest part for me was when you said, I love Jesus and all.
I do, but yeah. It's so true. It's kind of a sad part of my story, but yeah,
it's actually an awesome part. I love that. So, look, I'm very grateful that we finally got you on the show. We were talking the other day. I said, why haven't you been on my show yet? And you're like, I haven't been invited. And I'm like, I invited you. So anyway, thank you for being here. I mean, I want to ask you one last question before we go. And this is, I ask every guest this question at the end. Sure. My wife loves you, by the way. She's been making comments. Yeah.
You're awesome. Well,
so my question is this. What do you think holds most people back from success and happiness in life?
Belief in themselves, 1000%. Everything starts with belief. All of it starts with belief. Not just what you think about where you're headed, but ultimately what you think about yourself. And I can't take 100% credit for that, but I do know, whether it's biblical, which it's also biblical, everything starts with faith, right? It's all about faith. But Maxwell said it, that just statistically, the #1 reason people don't do personal growth or personal development is that they don't feel worthy of it. And that resonates so much with me, and I'll just be transparent. I mean, Ken and you and I were just talking about it the other day about imposter syndrome, right? Yep. Other people can tell you how good you are, but sometimes you don't really believe how good you are.
Right.
Like, it brings tears to my eyes, because I've sat across from people and you're looking, like, for example, I just judged a beauty pageant. A good friend of mine owns a pageant in the Miss USA system here. And 4 years ago, I was the Miss judge. This year, I was the teen judge. And there was a gorgeous girl that we interviewed, standing right in front of me, absolutely drop dead beautiful, had everything on her interview sheet to be successful, but she had experienced some trauma. She had actually she walked past a shooter that was coming in to shoot up her school. She was in, and it had frightened her and taken away a lot of her confidence. And I just looked at this beautiful young girl who had zero confidence in herself, and she did well in the pageant, but she didn't win. And ironically, I found out after the fact, quite a while after the fact, that she was the daughter of a friend of mine that I'd lost touch with. And this lady reached out to me, and I ended up having a very candid conversation. She said, "Would you mentor my daughter?" And I said, there's pageant judges, or not judges, coaches that would be better at that than me. But I said, the number one thing she needs to do is believe in herself. She needs to believe in herself and have confidence to give her that swagger and to give her that initiative to realize that even if she goes for it and fails, she can still get up and go again, because there is no such thing as failure unless you don't try again. Then it becomes failure. But if you just keep going, you can eventually get there. And so it all starts with belief, man.
So if they're, let's say, look, everybody goes through it. Everybody goes through it.
Yeah.
Everybody goes through the feeling like they're not capable or they're not good enough. Everybody. I've heard Ed Milet talk about it. Andy Frisella talk about it. Grant Cardone talk about it. I've heard all of these giants talk about it. And so what do you think if somebody is feeling less than, not capable, not good enough, what's the step? What's the first step that they need to take to increase that confidence in themselves?
I would say number one, go serve someone else. Go serve someone else in whatever capacity you can do it in. That's what I would say overall, because it's literally science that you can't be depressed, for example, which depression is often tied to your belief about yourself. But the sheer fact that you're saying it's my belief about myself that's making me sad, honestly, is almost a reverse form of narcissism. Now, I'm not talking about the depression that's caused chemically. I'm talking about people who are like poor, pitiful me, right? That's a reverse form of narcissism. And when you can get out of that and go serve someone without caring about yourself. I used to coach people on public speaking the same way. The reason people are afraid of public speaking is because they're so wrapped up in what are they thinking about me right now? Like, I'm sitting here talking to you and I'm like, oh my gosh, I could really use some wrinkle cream and and Botox and man, this hair. You could sit there all day long and think of what people can make fun of you for, right? Or you can say, listen, I am here as a soul to serve. And I'm up here for a reason. They've asked me to teach on something, and there's someone I need to teach. And I don't care if I'm standing here in a paper sack with no makeup on and a ball cap, which normally I'm in my, killing it hat.
I want one of those hats.
It's coming. But the bottom line is you've got to get over yourself and go serve someone else. And in doing so, and of course, here's where I take everybody to church. I just believe that God gave you your own fingerprint for a reason. There's nobody before you or nobody after you quite like you. And whether you believe in God or not, or a creator or karma, I don't know what it is, but how weird is it that you have a fingerprint that no one else on the planet ever had, will have, or does have?
Right.
That is like a signature that you are a masterpiece. And I love how your friend, Glenn Morshower, another amazing rock star you're aligned with, Mr. Rockstar. Glenn Morshower, I love him, right? Agent Pierce on 24.
Yeah.
He always says, hey man, you won the big swim.
Yeah.
It's so true. I mean, you came out a winner. You beat billions of sperm to the egg. You're here. And God gave you your own fingerprint saying, all right, you're here. You just accepted the mission. Go serve. And if you can just do that, you will see the greatness reflected back on you, because the people you are serving will tell you how you serve them. And that will give you insight into what you're able to do ultimately. And that will give you that belief, because you'll be like, man, if Ken Walls said it, that must be true. You know, he told me that I could do this, 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 and this, which, you know, is one of your greatest gifts. In the short time I've known you, you are an encourager, man. And you're a talent scout. You can see people's gifts and talents. He gave you that gift of discernment, man. And when you come at people with that discernment and that encouragement, and it comes back at you, you're like, wow, I believe in myself. I'm going to go jump in that phone booth and come out Wonder Woman, you know, or Superman, because somebody believed in you. And sometimes it takes that. It takes people believing in you, even when you don't believe in yourself, to make it happen.
You know, thank you for the kind words about me, but this isn't about me. It's about you. And I got to tell you, you are a freaking rock star. And I won't go into the conversations you and I have had, but I will tell everybody watching this or listening to this on any podcast platform that if you are not following Jennifer Moran, you are going to miss out on a freaking, like, her stories today have been phenomenal, but just wait, because she's got some stuff coming for y'all that you'll see. The world isn't even ready for what you're getting ready to deliver. So, Jen, and I'm allowed to call you Jen. Jen, you're amazing. I love you. I appreciate you coming on and spending time with us today and being open and vulnerable and funnier than hell.
We need to do like a virtual happy hour. That'd be even more fun.
I don't drink. I celebrate.
One thing I just learned about you the other day, that you don't drink.
I celebrate 18 years sober this coming Monday.
Why don't we do a virtual happy hour where you actually show up and you're just happy?
There you go. I'm always happy.
We could market that, Ken. A happy hour with no alcohol. Shocking. You just have to be happy.
Happy. That's it.
In fact, don't come to the happy hour if you're not happy.
Karen wants to know if you're on Instagram.
I am, girlfriend. Please connect with me. Grow.
And on Facebook. Facebook, Instagram, everywhere.
Yeah, I'm Grow with JMO on Instagram, and I have a website, growwithjmo.com, where you will see my glamour shots. So join me there.
You are awesome. Thank you. Don't hang up on me. Thank you. And everybody who shared this out, thank you. Everyone who's watched, thank you. If you didn't share it out, we're going to come back and publicly shame you. I'm kidding.
Wag our finger at you.
Thank you, Jen. I appreciate you.
I loved it. Loved it. Thank you.
You rock. We'll see you guys later.
Bye.